apparently you can only have one thing going at a time. So Stacy's listening to music at work. We're here live streaming. So, all right, welcome in everybody. My name is Anson Young. I'm a real estate investor and agent here in Denver, Colorado, and I am the author of Finding and Funding Great Deals Through BiggerPockets. And I'm just a real estate guy. I love technology, even though I can't figure this out to save my life, but that's okay. Here we go. So today we're going to tackle house hacking Q&A. And house hacking is extremely powerful. If you're not familiar with house hacking, we'll get into that in 2 seconds. It is the topic of Property Squad Season 1. That is my new podcast where I interview people who have had investing success, go through their trials, their tribulations, their story, and we then break down some of the key things from their success in the next episode. So, for example, in episode 1, Kim Johnson talks about her duplex, how she makes about $5,700 a month. She lives in one side, rents out the other. She also rents out a room inside of her duplex. And for that, she can live there for free with a $1,500 a month or so cash flow. So she gets to live there for free and she's getting paid. That sounds like a huge, huge win-win for me. But then again, what do I know? I never did personally house hack. My very first deal was a live-in flip in Glendale, Arizona. But if I could go back in time, I would definitely house hack. You might be asking, what the heck is house hacking? So if you're not familiar, that's where you buy a property to live in, a single family home, two unit, 3 unit, 4 unit, so a duplex, triplex, fourplex. You live in one part of the property and you rent out the rest. That can look like anything from a 2-bedroom condo and you rent out the other room. That's called having a roommate. Or you buy a duplex, you live in one unit, you rent out the other unit. Triplex, same thing. You live in one unit, rent out the other 2 units. And of course, a fourplex. You live in one unit, you rent out the other 3 units. Now, why only up to fourplex? That's usually as high as owner-occupant loans can go. So if you get an FHA loan, a conventional loan to buy the property, most times as an owner-occupant, they're not going to, let you buy a 20-unit apartment building and have it under an owner-occupant loan. That would be an investor or commercial loan. So we're talking about this being a great way to get started in a high-income, high-expense area. So Denver, our median home price is about $600,000, and so and then duplexes, they go for anywhere between $600 to $800, and then it only goes up from there. And so, as you can see, sometimes you do need to either create a basement apartment in order to offset your mortgage costs. And that's episode 3. We talk about that with Dan Mackin. That's coming out next week. But this is just, there's so many questions around house hacking that I figured, why not get into them? Why not get straight through to them? So, okay, cartographer asks, let's see. Hopefully you guys are hydrated. I'm drinking some watermelon salts. Sorry again, Stacy. I think these are hers. So, all right. Cartographer asks, FHA loan for owner-occupant triplex. What down payment percentage should I target? Now, FHA has a minimum of 3.5%. That's so if it's a $100,000 property, $3,500 would be 3.5%. So you could put down more in an FHA situation. You could put down 50%. You could put down 20%, as far as I understand. But most people go with FHA because it is a low down payment product. That's kind of the whole appeal of it, is you have a low down payment, but you will have private mortgage insurance. So that's not to get too far into the weeds, but that is basically a insurance policy since you're putting down so little. So you may not have equity in the property if you're only putting down 3.5%. So they require you to get private mortgage insurance if you're putting down less than 20% most of the time. Sometimes it's just 10%, 5%. But FHA, you'll pretty much always have PMI, private mortgage insurance, which runs anywhere between $100 a month, $200 a month, sometimes up to $300 a month, depending on your credit score. So that's credit based, unfortunately. That's just how it goes. All right. So the question is targeting what percentage should I target? That's up to you. On an FHA loan, I would just put down the 3.5% and roll with it, as long as the other numbers make sense. So if your payment's going to be $2,500 a month, and you know that you can rent out, like this is a triplex, so if you can rent out each of those other units for a minimum of $1,000 a month, that seems low. But $1,000 a month, your payment's $2,500. That means that you're going to live in your one unit out of the three for $500 a month. Unit 2 is going to be paying $1,000 a month. Unit 3 is going to be paying $1,000 a month. So it's going to go basically like that. Okay. Next question. Let's go to a different category. So property selection. Oof. Okay. Man, number guy 101 is getting right into it. All right. Fixer upper house hack. How do you estimate renovation costs and rental income? Woo. All right. This is a big one. So fixer upper house hack. This is generally not recommended, mainly because it's your first property house hack. Not always. There's a lot of house hackers that go on and they buy 3 or 4 as they go along their journey. But so your first property plus a bunch of renovation, plus you're trying to rent it out. It's kind of just a big stack of disaster waiting to happen. And Dan Mackin does talk about it in episode 3. That's his number one recommendation of what not to do in a house hack, is to get into it with large renovation. But we're going to try and tackle this. So we're going to start with the renovation costs. So buying a fixer-upper, it's a great way to have equity in the property. It's a great way to build in that equity. So if you buy something that's beat up, it's going to be discounted. So a $300,000 property might sell for $200,000 if it needs a bunch of work. That makes sense, right? So now you have to figure out how much that renovation cost is going to be so the deal makes sense. So if those properties are worth $300,000 and it's listed for $200,000, if that property needs $200,000 of work, so $200,000 purchase, $200,000 renovation, now you're talking about a $400,000 property, and it's only worth $300,000, that's not a deal, right? Right. Say it with me. That's not a deal at all. All right. So you're gonna have to figure out what that looks like. A really great way to do this is to get people who know what they're doing inside the property. So I would get 1 to 3 contractors inside that property to give you line item bids on the work that needs to be done. The reason you get a line item bid is because it breaks out everything from here's what the tile is going to cost, here's what the flooring is going to cost, the rest of the flooring, here's what the kitchen's going to cost, here's what the paint's going to cost. It's all broken down so that you know what's in each category for 1, and for 2, you can take those line item bids and now you can kind of reverse engineer a kind of a process for the next property that you go into. So if these bids are coming in at $2.50 a square foot for paint, and that's what the line item bid is telling you, the next property that you walk into, that this 1,000 square foot property at $2.50 a square foot, that's what's normally going to be charged for paint. And so you have to rely on contractors less and less as you go. But at the beginning, definitely get experts in there to figure out what each thing costs. So, estimating renovation costs at first, if you don't know what you're doing, get in some contractors to give you line item bids. If you have 3 line item bids on a property, you'll have a really good idea of what it's going to cost to fix. One's going to come in high, one's going to come in low, one's going to come in the middle, and you just go from there, right? You can average them out. You can go with the guy that you like the best. You can go with the guy with the best communication, all of that fun stuff. Now, rental income. Second part of Numbers Guy's question. Rental income is interesting. So, and it's going to depend. So it's going to depend on the size of the unit. If it's just a bedroom. So let's try to tackle most of these things since this is a Q&A and I have a captive audience here. So on that one bedroom, like let's just say you have a bedroom in your condo and you're trying to figure out what is that going to rent for. I would go on to places like Furnished Finder. I would go on places like Facebook Marketplace. Try to search for one bedroom inside of a house and what that normally rents for. You're trying to find comparables for your unit, for your bedroom that you're trying to rent out. And so if you go on and you find out, okay, in this area, this zip code, this side of town, whatever that looks like, these bedrooms seem to be renting for anywhere between $700 to $900. You can kind of factor in, okay, at $800, this should definitely be the kind of the area where this will rent. $800 a month for that bedroom. Then you can factor that into your analysis. So you go, okay, well, my mortgage is going to be $1,500 a month. I can rent out that bedroom for $800. That means that my side of the payment is going to be $700. Does that make sense for what I want to do? Yes, no. So another unit, this is where things get a little interesting. So if it's a basement unit, it's say you have a ranch with a full basement. This happens a lot here in Denver. They convert the basement into a separate apartment, separate unit, has its own kitchen, entrance, bedrooms, bathrooms, all down there. Sorry, got a text about that Spotify thing. So, and that's also what we're going to be doing here on live stream. So if you just want to tune out and work, I might tune out and work. I might do these longer. Who knows? All right, that basement unit. And again, I keep talking about Dan Mackin in episode 3. This is top of mind since I just watched that edit. So he talks about he has a 1-bedroom downstairs in his house hack, and the way that he comped it out was to look for what 1-bedroom apartments are going for in that area. If it's a 2-bedroom, obviously you'd be comping out 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, etc. So that's a pretty good method. That basement unit, you could treat like its own apartment. Just like if you live in one side of the duplex and rent out the other side of the duplex, I would treat that other unit as an apartment. It's not its own single family house. It's not, comping it any other way is going to be difficult, but comping it as a 2-bedroom apartment makes a lot of sense. So if you see that, I think Dan saw that 1-bedroom apartments were going for over $1,000. And so he said, I only need $700 a month out of this. Can I rent this, really nice 1-bedroom apartment in my basement for at least $700? He looked at all the comparables, said yes. So again, and if you have a triplex or a fourplex, a lot of them are very similar. So you would have a triplex that all have 2-bedroom, 1 bath, or 1-bedroom, 1 bath. You have a fourplex and they're all 2-bedroom, 1 bath, or 2-2, or they're usually mirrored inside those complexes. And so I would treat those as each individual apartment. So if a 2-bedroom apartment is going for $1,200 a month, I would analyze that triplex as, okay, I'm going to live in unit 1. Unit 2 is going to be $1,200 a month. Unit 3 is going to be $1,200 a month. So that's $2,400 a month that I can apply to my formula, see if it makes sense. Okay. Next question. All right. This is a good question. So, lease agreement help. That's a pretty on the nose username. Asks, and I'm not making this up. These are all Reddit or social media. I grabbed these from. Solid lease agreement template for house hacking. Well, it's going to look a lot of the same as just a regular lease agreement. And so templates are a little hard. There's 50 states. There's probably 50 different templates out there. One thing I would say is that BiggerPockets does have templates available for each state for a lease agreement, sample lease agreements. If that doesn't work, there are sample lease agreements that you can get at like Staples or Office Depot. They are very boilerplate. By that, I just mean very generic. They are the most generic document that you can have. But sometimes that's better. That's obviously better than nothing. I would rather have generic, legal versus nothing, or something written on the back of a napkin or something. So those are two decent ways to go. If you want to get complex, talk to a lawyer, have them draft you up something for your state, something that protects you, something that obviously falls within all the laws and rules and regulation for your state, and go from there. It sounds like a little bit of a cop out, but or you could just like a Google search of sample lease agreement for Colorado. There's probably going to be 10 different ones that you can look at. But it is a great question. I would say get a lawyer involved, but I understand that not everybody wants to or can pay for that. All right, next question. Here's one. User Dilemma says, using equity from house hack for future investments. Any strategies? Yeah, so that's going to kind of depend if you want to stay in your house hack or if you're moving on to something different. A lot of house hackers, they'll live in their house hack for a year or two. Then they'll either buy another house hack and convert that first one into a rental. They'll sell that first house hack and then go house hack again. Or they'll, life changes. You want to move across the country, you get married, you don't want a house hack anymore, whatever that looks like. You turn your current house into a rental, go on, buy another house, whatever that looks like, and then invest in other properties. So we're gonna try to hit most of these strategies here, but it's gonna look roughly the same. So while you're an owner occupant, you have good tools that investors typically don't have. So a home equity line of credit when you're an owner occupant is much easier to get than a home equity line of credit than when you're just an investor. So if you don't live in the property, the bank looks at you very suspiciously. They go, oh, this isn't their home. They're not tied into this property. They don't live there. So they just look at you very differently, unfortunately. And so when you're an owner occupant, the bank says, oh, they have stake in this house. They live there. This is their home. Usually you have better rates. You have better home insurance rates. You have better options when it comes to HELOCs. You have better options when it comes to refinancing and cashing out. So while you're still living there, it might make sense to pull out some of that money and then go do that thing. If you try to convert that into a rental and then do a cash out refinance, well, the first question the bank's going to ask you is if you live there. And then they're going to ask you, well, if you don't live there, well, we're going to get you, the investor loan on this property, or the amount that you can pull out on a HELOC changes. Um, so while you're still living there, either do a cash out refinance. So that is basically refinancing your entire loan into a loan with a larger amount. So if you owe $200,000, the property's worth $400,000, and you want to pull out $100,000 in order to go on and do your next property, then that's a cash out refinance. So you basically have a new loan for $300,000 instead of $200,000, and obviously a higher payment. The interest rate's going to be based on the market interest rate for the time period. So right now in 2024, let's say you bought in 2021 and you have a 3% loan. Well, fast forward to 2024, those interest rates are no longer 3%. You're talking at least 6.5%, if not 7%. And so you're gonna have to take that all into effect of like what that higher payment looks like, plus the higher payment that comes from the interest rate. But we're talking about just cashing out. So, so either tap into a HELOC, pull out money, or pull out that money when you're ready. Not too far after moving out or whatever it is that you're going to do next. The bank does, they did loan to you on a owner occupant, so they're going to want to see that you're still owner occupying, or at least intending to, or doing that cash out refinance. And that will pull out that $100,000. That'll let you can use that for anything. You can pay down your credit cards. You can go buy half of a Lamborghini. You can go, there's a bunch of things that you can do with that. And so, yeah, hopefully that helps you in that question. So, all right. Next question. All right, this is a good one. Where'd it go? Finding reliable tenants. Oh boy, here we go. All right. So Jubilee 21 says, finding reliable tenants for my house hack. What are the best screening methods? Oh boy. This is so important, guys. I cannot stress this enough. Like, the amount of extra work that you put into actually screening your tenants will save you so much headache down the road. So if it's kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of like planning for your trip, instead of just buying a ticket, showing up in Rome or whatever, and then going, well, what am I going to do? And you didn't plan out your trip, and you're wasting your time, you're wasting your money, you have no idea what's going on. If you spent those 2 or 3 weeks to plan your entire trip and exactly what you want to do, and then get there, so much better. So much better. So the amount of time and effort that you take to screen tenants, it's going to just pay off in the long run. So finding reliable tenants, I would honestly suggest going with a third-party tenant screener if you have no idea what you're doing, if you don't want to take the time to learn how to do this. Not property management, but there are services where you just pay them. You collect usually you collect an application fee, depending on the market, depending on the how much volume is coming in. Collect an application fee, and then you use that application fee to screen the tenants. And if that's not the case, then I would just narrow it down to the top 3 tenants, and then put them through one of these screening services that they'll pull their credit. They'll do like a light background check. They'll kind of verify a lot of those things. You want to verify employment, verify income. You want to do some sort of credit check. Make sure that they're not on any landlord blacklists, if those exist in your area. I would search Facebook for some of those, but if you have no idea what you're doing, it's well worth the $150 or whatever they charge for those tenant screenings. If you don't have a property manager. If you have a property manager, they should be doing all of these things for you. But if you don't, I understand. I would rely on at least a service that could do most of that for you, um, and go through some of those methods. So I would ask for, ask for their basically an employment verification, an income verification, set some sort of limit. So some landlords will do, they have to make 2 times the rent or 3 times the rent. So if rent's $1,000, they have to at least be bringing in $3,000 a month. But verifying those things up front, spending the time, spending the money up front, that person's going to be living in your place for for at least a year, right? So why not take the extra time, effort, and energy up front to screen them out, make sure that everything's good, and go from there. All right, give me 2 seconds here. We'll get to the next question here. So I am in the middle of working, so so take a text break, take a drink break. Make sure you're hydrated. Let me mute this for 2 seconds as I cough. All right, welcome back. Oh, looks like we can bring music in. Hopefully not too loud. Let's find it. Oh, that's okay. We won't worry about it. We'll worry about it another time. All right. All right, here's a question. What are the best loan options for house hacking with low credit scores? Well, sorry to hear about your low credit score, but there are still options. So, um, basically, there's an option. Basically, your only option is FHA. So FHA will allow credit scores down to like I think 680, and then some programs will allow 620, but probably not on a fourplex or something where you're trying to borrow a huge amount. Um, so 680 doesn't sound bad, but in like the mortgage and real estate world, unfortunately, that's kind of like the bare minimum of where you want to be. There are some very niche like city programs that will go lower than 620. Um, but let's just say you have a 680 or a 650 or something like that, 680, and 680 hopefully. But FHA is going to be your best bet. Um, Conventional loan might want to see as high as 720, but a an FHA they'll take 680 all day long. If you have lower than that, I would suggest doing everything that you can while you're still saving up for your payment, for your down payment and your closing costs and all that. Do everything that you can to get that up. There are now programs, or there's apps, and there's companies that will let you apply rent towards your credit score if your landlord's okay with that. So if you're paying on time every month, then that can be factored in. Other payments that you make, utility payments, there are companies that will report those to your credit as on-time payments, which will always help. And then there are obviously credit boosting services. Experian, TransUnion, all of those have different credit boosting programs. And so I would say do everything that you can to get that up. At 720, is going to be so much better than that 680, and will take you just a few months to get up there. Paying off some of the debt, I would work with your mortgage, your loan person, in order to figure out what's going to be kind of the best things to do to get that up, and then go from there. But the loan options on low credit scores for house hacking, FHA, it's going to be the same as just a normal home purchase. All righty. All right, here we go. So Josh Max, that's all it says. Josh Max asks, balancing living space with maximizing rent in a duplex. Any advice? So a duplex is ideal. Like, that's one of the most perfect house hacking scenarios. You can live in one unit, rent out the other unit. You don't have to share space with them at all, except for maybe some common living space or a shared driveway, something like that. That's the most ideal scenario for most house hackers, is to be able to cut off that space. You don't have to live with them. That, at least for me, that's ideal. I don't know about you, but so the best way to maximize that space would be a lot of areas you in order to do a short-term rental, so an Airbnb, Verbo, those type of properties, you have to also be an owner occupant. And then there are further restrictions in certain areas where they you need a permit, or they don't allow it in duplexes for some reason. But in most areas that have owner occupant restriction on short-term rentals, the way to maximize your house hacking income would be to live in one unit, Airbnb the other unit. That's going to get you the most amount of cash flow. It's going to be more work. It's going to be more money up front, because you have to furnish that unit. You have to put the bed, the beds, the couches, the TVs. You have to put all of that in there so people can obviously come to town, grab their luggage, come into your unit, and everything's there for them. But it is also the way that you'll make the absolute most money. Next after that would be a midterm rental. So these are traveling nurses, people traveling to town, people in between houses. There's 100 different reasons why people do midterm rentals, but those are kind of the top 3. After that, a room by room rental. So in a highly unaffordable area like Denver, where each bedroom can rent out for $1,000 a month or $1,200 a month, somewhere around there. That might make sense just to put, if you have a 2-bedroom next door, put in 2 separate tenants. So one for each bedroom. Treat it like a 2-unit over there, because for that 2-unit, you might be able to get $2,000 a month, but you might be able to get $2,400 if you put 2 actual just room by room tenants in there. So that's another way to maximize that space. And again, Kim from episode 1, she has a duplex, 2 bedrooms on each side. So she lives in one side in one room, rents out a bedroom to a friend, and then on the other side, she rents out the entire unit as a midterm rental. So on one side, she's getting $4,500 a month for that midterm rental, 2-bedroom. And then on the other side, she's getting $1,200 a month just for that bedroom. I'd say that's about that's an ideal scenario for maximizing your cash flow on your duplex for sure. Which, I mean, who doesn't want to live in their own property for free, plus getting paid, $1,500 a month on top of that? So, what I always say this, and it's going to sound trite, but what can you do if you had your entire housing payment eliminated? You could save up that money for other properties. You could put all of that money into the stock market. You could dump it all into your 401k. There's a million things you could do with that money. Just the whole point of house hacking, honestly, is so that You can get in with an owner-occupant loan, have some or all of your mortgage offset, paid for, and then save that money that you would be spending on rent or your own property, so that you could go on to the next thing. So many house hackers, they go on from one property to the next. They continue to house hack through 2 or 3 properties, but the way that they're allowed to do that, the way that they're afforded to do that, is because the money that they save on their rent, on their housing payment, lets them save up money for that next down payment so much faster than if you're trying to pay a full amount of rent or a full mortgage and then trying to save each month below that. If you can eliminate this side and just save up your full housing payment, it's obviously going to go so much faster for you. Okay. Hydration break for everybody. Try and roll in Spotify for fun. Take that back. That was not a good one. It looked good at first. There you go. Here's 303 dilemma. I'm moving out of my house hack soon. How to find a new place easily. So I wish that these had a little bit more context, but we can roll with what we can. I'm going to assume that you are going to be renting out your previous house hack if you're looking for a new house hack. Let's just roll with that scenario. We're just going to make up that scenario and drop it right on top. So moving out of my house hack. So obviously when you're converting your existing house hack into a rental, there's not a whole lot that needs to be done. You're just basically carrying out your side of duplex. If your FHA loan is still in place, that's still in document. You could abandon that loan. And by that I mean you can just move out after a year or two, and FHA is not going to let you down. You said you're no longer. Why aren't you occupying the property? What the heck's going on? That kind of stuff. Now, if you tried that 2 months ago, then you didn't have the property. So if you want to go on and buy another house out there, and make a natural transition, you're going to either have to leave your FHA loan in place. Your second property, you're going to have to go with a conventional loan because you can only have one FHA loan at a time. And that just means that your down payment's going to be higher and your credit requirements are going to be higher. So before you obviously do any of this, I would talk to a lender. Just make sure that what you're doing makes sense and go from there. Turn off this music. And then, so they, talking to them beforehand, knowing that you can actually do a conventional loan would make a lot of sense before you go and you move out of your property and then find out that you can't do a conventional. too many to get into on a live stream on YouTube. But yeah, so that's going to be your best bet, is talk to the lender and then really figure out what you're doing next. If you're house hacking again, there are a bunch of different things that you can do for that. So going right into that is how lenders count potential rental income when it comes to qualifying for a house hack. This is a killer question because it's kind of the first thing that comes in. So let me explain this so that it's pretty easy. So let's say you qualify personally. I qualify for $400,000 for mortgage. That's under my own income, my own credit, my own tax statements, all that stuff. I personally qualify for $400,000. Talking to your lender and really, they're part of your team when you're investing. A really good lender will help you out through all of these things. So talking to your lender and just saying, look, I want to buy a duplex or a triplex. I want to take that potential rental income. So let's say one side of the duplex will rent for $2,000. You're going to live in the other side. Well, the lender can take a portion of that potential rental income, so the amount of income that comes in, that you haven't seen that income. It doesn't exist yet. But they're going to take what it's going to be. They're going to cut off some off the top. They're going to cut off about 25% off the top. That's going to be for vacancy, for just general cushion, so the bank has a little bit of everything there. Then they can apply the rest of that to your income. So let's say you make $100,000 a year. Well, now the bank sees that you make $100,000 plus $1,500 a month in potential rental income. So again, you're buying a duplex, living on one side, the other side rents out for $2,000. Cut off 25% of that $2,000, apply that $1,500 to your income. So now, inside the lender world, when they calculate all these things, they're going to say, oh, he doesn't just make $100,000. He now makes, what would that be, another $18,000 on top of that. Is my math right? Yeah. So now he makes $118,000. He can actually qualify for a $450,000 property or a $500,000 property, whatever that looks like. This is how a lot of house hackers will kind of stretch, buy the biggest house hack that they can afford with that potential rental income. This is how a lot of them can go from, well, I can only buy like a large townhome or a single family house with my own income, but with the potential rental income, now I can actually buy like a triplex or something. It goes far outside that $400,000 that they were looking for. And now they might be able to do it for $500, $550, $600. It depends on potential rental income that they can buy their own income in order to go from there. So this is how you kind of step up. Now we just we feel comfortable about this potential rental income. It's a weird workaround. So, and then there's a thing that my friend Conrad, he's a lender here in Denver, told me about, which is if you live in a house hack, you have 3 roommates. So let's just say you have a ranch, a big 4-bedroom ranch. You have 3 friends who are roommates. This has actually happened before with one of my clients. He wanted to move on to the next property. Well, his friends wanted to move with him. They're like, we love living all together. Let's all move with John over to this new property. In that case, if they're long, they've been with you for a year, these are your 3 friends, 2 friends and your cousin in this case, the lender can do what's called order. So like move forward, they can take that order. So that's all 3 of your friends who've been with you for a while. There has to be a track record in the house. They've been with you for a while. All of them move over to the property. The bank sees them and they go, you can actually apply for real estate value over here to the they're all in the same place. All come over here. They're all ready. So that's a good way to move on to the house hack as well. How long have we been doing this for? 50 minutes? We can make it a solid hour. So another question or two. Let's see. If you ever have house hacking questions, real estate investing questions, just regular real estate questions, I am a licensed agent. I have been since 2007. Please leave them in the description. Yes, edit my description. Leave them in the comments. Send them over on social media at Companies Podcast or at to diss those guys. I personally know guys with Lambos. Not to diss on those guys. You know, they're not the guru though. They're just normal guys. But we're just not that. So, a couple more questions. Oh boy, okay. So Closed rental comparables is a little bit hard. You can usually find the on-market demand, so how many are listed currently, and then go from there. But finding closed properties, so this property rented for sure for $1,500 a month, that's really hard to find in areas that don't have MLS rentals. In Denver, we just got MLS rentals a couple years ago. Nobody uses them. There are markets where MLS rentals have been going on for decades. And so they are very used to that's just the place where you put in your rental listing. Other agents, you go and get a rental. Go get an agent rentals. They look at it. Appreciation potential, that's a little bit, well, it's not that hard. I would find any, like the Denver Metro Realtor Board stats show appreciation year over year, show appreciation in areas, so different areas of town, different neighborhoods. That would probably be the best way to easily grab the appreciation potential for that area. So if you're like, I want to have my house hacked on the east side of Denver, and I really want to know what's the best area that it will appreciate. Well, I would go to the Colorado Realtor Board or the Denver Realtor Board or the suburbs on the east side and figure out what that looks like year over year. So if the northeast side is appreciating at 4% year over year, but the southeast side is appreciating at 7, 8, 9% year over year, I would probably look obviously in that higher appreciating area. And that comes with other problems that can come with higher, that usually will come with a higher ticket price. So your actual purchase price will be higher. But if you want to find the appreciation potential in that area, their last bastion of value is data. They have access to data, they have access to MLS. Go to the Realtor Board. They publish reports every week. If not, go to the business journal for the area. Mobile HOA rules on rentals? Can I house hack in this community? How to find them? So, we're going to assume that you're having lobby, looking at this neighborhood, you're looking at this listing. It's in an HOA neighborhood. You want to know, can I house hack in that community? So, if the area has the phone number for the HOA, the name of the HOA, the website address for the HOA, all of those things. So ask your agent for the HOA info and then get on it. Honestly, like, I know that a lot of those things this property is the right property. Go under contract. Don't just take this step. You're going to want to do step 2. Step 1. I've seen HOA documents cost a few $1,000s. So that's why the first step is just to call. Now, step 2, when those HOA documents come, you just want to double check the manager. And let's just say step 1, they said they gave you the green light, and the HOA documents say something. Well, I would call them. I would go back to the HOA manager. Or I found instead of HOA documents that says this, or paragraph 5 says that I can't Yes, you went through a bunch of headaches, you jumped through a bunch of hoops to find out that you just can't do the type of outside that you want to do every year. That's better than losing your purpose because you no longer want to run outside. You start working. Only recourse is to break the contract and lose your purpose, which can mean that's a really great point. Each way is losing hard times. Check those out. Some are completely free. Some are obviously mailing services. And so you obviously have to pay for mailing services. But there are free tools down there. If you're looking to do mail marketing, adding my CRM down there. Some customer relationship management. So, till next time, see you guys.